All right, so I want to welcome everybody to the Inquisitive Mind of Louis T podcast. This right here is kind of like a special edition because before I was doing the podcast, what kind of led me to doing this, I did what I call a docu-short when I talked to some of my friends about their journey with recovery. So I thought it would be and we actually filmed that roughly a year ago. And I think we did the release. I got to look up the date, but it was right around a year as well. So I thought it would be a good back to kind of go back to my roots and invite some of my friends that was on that and talk to them. Just follow up with them and kind of like close out this chapter of Inquisitive Mind of Louis T. So I'm gonna let them introduce themselves. Ladies first.
Hi, my name is Diana.
You know.
I'm Breeze Davis.
You know. So I've known Diana for a while. We worked together. And so I met Breeze. I did an interview with him. We talked about one of his songs, talked about a couple other things, talked about the clothing line. And then from there, we just built a rapport. And so just a little back history. Like I noticed these different people like Breeze and some other friends. They would always talk about recovery. Well, not necessarily talk about it, but I became aware that they were recovering. And I was like, when I found out different ones knew each other, I'm like, these people, I don't understand how these people know each other. And I found out it was through recovery. But even though one of my closest friends, I've known him for over 20 years, I never really knew about recovery. So I was like, that's what kind of started Inquisitive Mind. Breeze actually gave me that name. He's like, you have an inquisitive mind. When we were talking about, when we were like kind of pre-planning the road to recovery. So, I was just like, hey, I wanted to, talk to my friends about it. Like, best way is to find something out is to ask. Mm-hmm. So I was just like, a year later, what did y'all think about the actual road to recovery?
I thought it was great. It was cool the way everybody had different stories and backgrounds and different journeys on how they got clean. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I thought it was dope for that too. Everybody had kind of a different perspective on recovery and how it worked for them. So you kind of got a glimpse into like the way different people do it and how that works for them. I thought it was real cool.
Yeah. So I think Diane's being kind, because I remember we talked. You felt there was some parts of yours that that left out. You want to talk about that?
Well, it's just that my recovery had to do with like surrendering to Jesus and, getting on my knees and just wanting to get out of the prison that I was in. And my route was Celebrate Recovery. And when we watched the viewing that you had, I just felt like a lot of when I talked about Jesus or about Celebrate Recovery wasn't in but it doesn't mean that I didn't think it was great. You know, I mean, it was just something that I noticed that, a couple people talked about NA or AA, but the parts that I talked about Jesus and about Celebrate Recovery weren't necessarily shared.
I think there had to be something about Celebrate. With that, I don't know. I haven't watched it in a while. It didn't say anything about Celebrate?
There may have been like one quick thing, but it was
only
more
22 minutes.
It was more about, my addiction and things like that, but I don't know, I just felt like that was my real story. It was about, asking Jesus to help me.
Yeah. All right. And then what I plan, I got to check. What I would like to do is after this comes out, maybe what I was planning on doing is releasing the individual stories like on the
nice.
YouTube page.
You dope.
Nice.
But I was gonna take a break from the podcast because this is gonna be one of my last group settings, and we want to start doing what's like a spotlight where I just sit down with one person and just do more of an in-depth interview. Where
That's
I don't know
good.
if y'all Breathe. You were just saw how I had typically it's like 4 people here. Like I have 3 guests, and we do a deep dive on the subject.
Nice.
So in between, while I tooled up for that, I was gonna it's all about content. Start like releasing the individual interviews that we did, but some things happened, so I might be back in the booth a little bit quicker. So I don't know. We'll still see, but You know, so how's y'all journey been since shooting?
Everything's been going good for me. I'm working, and I mean, I'm blessed without a doubt because almost 4 years ago, I was not in a good place. Probably could have ended up dead or in jail. I was doing illegal stuff, and now, like, I'm blessed. I have a job on the radio, which is, I have no experience whatsoever, and it was just something that happened. So I'm very grateful for that, and still working on my recovery. I go to 2 recovery meetings a week, and in January, I'll be getting 4 years.
It's awesome.
Gotcha. And I mean, Breeze, you like out right after filming, you had a lot of life happened to you afterwards. So like,
yeah, I was actually
going
to ask you that. I couldn't remember if that happened before or right after we shot. I think it was right after we shot it.
It was after because she was here.
She was here when we shot it, and
Yeah.
then I know that we did that in the credits or whatever. You did that in the credits where we put
Yes.
something about it in there. But I mean, yeah, what we're talking about is right after we had shot that, my old lady, my girlfriend at the time, had passed away because of addiction. She had been clean for several years and kind of went right back out, and she got a hold of a bad batch or something, and that was it. So it's been a rough year. Like, it's been a real rough year for me. I've had a lot of ups and downs. Just trying to maintain like where I'm at. Like, everything has been good on the surface. It's just a lot of like inside stuff and trying to make sure that like everything is good. I haven't had any real slips, but it's been close. It hasn't been easy, that's for sure.
Yeah. Okay. And then so like, what? Because I mean, being that it's my first project, it's a whole new thing to me. Like, what would you want people, or what do you think people can get out of, or do you think somebody can get out of watching The Road to Recovery?
I'll let you go first.
I was kind of hyped when you had mentioned trying to get it into some treatment centers, maybe like WTC or any treatment center like that.
Mm-hmm.
I think that it has a lot of potential there just to give some people some hope. Some people that are in a really dark place, to see some other people that may have did it, and then see other ways, because those people in treatment aren't necessarily going to take the same path when they get out of treatment. You know what I mean? They might do something different. To see that there's other ways and how people did it, I think it's a hope shot for a lot of people. So I really like that idea. And any kind of setting where it's going to get to addicts who may still be struggling.
Yeah. Well,
That sounds like a great idea, in all honesty. I mean, I know there's the harbor where people go and spend, I think, 6 days. And I actually went there, and we brought a meeting to them once, and that was pretty cool. And then I had somebody that was there come to our meeting and say, like, do you remember me? And I was at the harbor, which was nice. But, yeah, just, I think that sharing it would definitely give people hope and maybe just make them realize that you can get away from that lifestyle and have victory,
Yeah. Well, when we did the viewing, or the screening, I guess viewing sounds weird. That sounds like a funeral. But when we did the screening for it, one thing, it makes perfect sense after the fact, but I feel like a lot of people that's in recovery, even though that's not my target market, but they're not they know, either they feel they know or they don't know. Like, I feel like to get back to what I'm saying before I build on it, but we had the viewing at Morning Glory, which is a very, in the recovery world here in Wilmington, a big thing.
It's like a central hub.
Yeah. And so the bartender of the coffee shop, he was like, well, if I wasn't working, I wouldn't want to come see a documentary about recovery. I live this, So that kind of opened my mind. Like, so this is not necessarily people who are going through recovery, which that wasn't my intent, but I thought that would be more of, I guess, my audience.
Right.
Which I don't think, unless they are in a treatment center where they have to watch it, I don't think those.
Well, see, I can't say I totally agree with that either, because if somebody's in recovery, and I don't know what kind of program they're doing, but most people are going to stay involved in it. They're going to go and listen to somebody else's story. They're going to tell their story because they know that by doing that, they're going to help somebody new out. So to say that, like, I don't want to, I hear this all day long, kind of taking yourself out of helping somebody else out when you do that, which in my opinion is kind of everything that recovery isn't. No matter how you do recovery kind of works by like opening up and helping other people. You get something good out of it. I get clean, then I need to kind of give that back to the other people.
Right.
And if there's a documentary or some kind of content out there that I could be a part of that's going to help people get that, then I should want to do that. And that's my opinion on that. I think maybe we didn't have a big turnout from some of those like 12-step groups because of what I said at first. I think everybody has their set way. So people believe that, it's like anything else. If I do it this way, this is the right way. So I think maybe because it wasn't specific to one of those set groups, some of those people might have felt like, well, this isn't really us, you know what I mean? This is some other, you know, and I can't speak for other people, but that's kind of what I think, because things in those groups are very in those groups, you know what I mean? They sponsor their events, so it's kind of an outside thing. And I think we saw some people from there, which was cool.
No, I mean, I was cool with the turnout. Yeah. But I mean, I was just saying, talking to people, I was like, that kind of, it made a little bit of sense. You know, so I was about to ask. So, Breeze, you opted out to not be part of the panel when we did the screening.
I did?
You know, like, you know, but you did. I'm glad you're
here. I knew you were going to ask me that, man.
Of course. Like, so.
It's a hard topic to talk about, you know, and at the time, didn't really know how I felt about it, didn't know what kind of questions were going to be directed at me, and you know as well, it's like I do other stuff that's in the light of what people see. And sometimes you don't want to always have everything out there. So when I talk about stuff like this, it's like I'm open with talking about the problem, talking about the solution. But there's certain questions people might ask me that I might not really want to answer on camera. You know, and that's just my own personal stuff. And that's where I stood with that. I didn't know who was going to be asking questions, how it was going to be directed, and it was just kind of me, you know, at the time I just felt more comfortable not necessarily being involved in that part of it. If I could go back now and do it and knowing how it was, I definitely would have been a part of it, you know, but.
Yeah, it wasn't. I don't think none of the questions, because I think most of the questions came from Tim.
Yeah,
Tim was supposed to be on the documentary, but his audio got messed up, so we had him host that event, and then he hosted so I did. I don't know if I did it. No, it's because it's two different stages. So I did Road to Recovery. I shot that first, but it took longer to edit, and then we did the hip hop competition.
Yeah.
With Hustle
and Haji and all that, right,
and Fuzz. So we did a viewing for that.
The names Hustle and Fuzz.
Yeah. Fuzz Jackson, rappers.
Oh, okay.
You gotta have a rap name. You gotta have a name like that when you're
rapping. You know. So we did that, which that was a little bit more similar to this setup. Like this is stage. This is like a version 4, I think. I don't know. You know.
I like this setup.
I think actually some of this was remnants from. I think there's a little bit of remnants from when we did that, but we had the table with the cloth, and then the panels. Yeah, so we've definitely grown a little bit since then. So what's some of the stuff you're talking about, y'all? So since then, what's some of the things y'all been involved with that's been helping you on your journey?
I do sponsor a couple people, and, you know, like what Breeze was saying, that's what it's about. It's, you know, I realize now that I went through all that darkness, so I could be there for other people and try to help them and give them hope. So I've taken on some people that I'm sponsoring now, and I share my testimony as often as I can at different meetings and stuff like that, and just stay involved in the recovery community. I just stay active in it.
It really is a community, like... It really is a community, like
definitely.
You know, like just when I was just trying to get out and promote it, was just there's terminology and lingo, and like I talked to Alex Hunt. I've been on his podcast, Hunt for Greatness, a couple times.
Mm-hmm.
He's in recovery, and we're talking about this. And it's just like lingo.
Definitely got its own language.
That you know, and just places and everything. That's like if you know, like if you're in there, you know. And I'm like. And I'll say something, and they'll, you know, but I don't know.
They know you ain't in there.
Yeah. So.
It goes back to what you said too earlier, where it's like, when you see all these people that know each other, and I mean, I guess that's kind of stereotypical, but you can look at a group of people and be like, this group of people didn't meet on any other terms. Like, you know what I mean? Like when you see 5 people hanging out, or these 5 people know each other, and you know those people shouldn't have ever met any. They should not have crossed paths anywhere else. No. And I see that a lot, and I think that's cool with the recovery community. Like you said, you get a mesh of all types of different people. It's just like if you were to watch this original documentary, everybody on there's got a different life story, different personality, and it's the same problem though. Same problem. Solutions are a little different, but you know the core values I feel like are the same. You know.
Yeah. So what have you, you know, other than your, you know, shortcomings and stuff, what's been, I mean, there's been some positive things going on.
There have been some positive things. It's been a busy year. music is always a thing. You know, we've opened up the studio in Castle Haynes, so I'm always out there working on other artists' music, working on my own music. We've been traveling a lot in and out of Atlanta, several other places, doing shows and whatnot this year. In actuality, on paper, it's probably been one of the better years of my life. It's just been, and that's what's cool about recovery again, is that I was able to do all that stuff and have a good year and still didn't feel great, you know what I mean? But the thing is, I didn't have to do anything too stupid, you know what I mean? Like, I didn't go crazy and go off the deep end. You know, things were good and I was able to maintain, but I'd be a lie if I sat here and said I felt great all year long. You know, it was a rough situation. I lost somebody that I loved to the disease of addiction. And I mean, I still haven't fully gotten over that. You know, that pops up on me every day. But it's just kind of about getting by the best I can. If this would have happened to me 6 years ago, I probably would have self-sabotaged and went and did the most destructive thing that I could. I probably would have did the exact same thing that wound up killing her, you know? And I was able to make it through that. So there's some light in that. The fact that I was able to go through that and make it out and be okay and just be okay feeling how I feel, to me is a positive, you know what I mean? So I've maintained, I'm still here, and that's positive for me.
Oh, that's what's up. Trying to think what else we need to cover. So did anybody else's story? So did you get anything from like seeing your story, like on the film, or maybe like, or somebody else's story, and be like, oh man, they went through that. I can did your story or anybody else's story on the documentary? Did it speak to you in any kind of way?
Is his name Michael? Right.
Mike was the alcoholic.
Correct, right. His story was pretty intense. I mean, it just made me realize alcohol's never been a problem of mine. So, you know, mine was a different drug of choice. And to hear what he went through, you know, and for so long, and how he wound up detoxing, and, you know, the like the renewed relationships that he has in his life now and everything. Yeah. That was good. I mean, I'm one of those people that I like going to recovery things. I like hearing these success stories. It, you know, gives me joy to see that. So I thought it was good to see everybody's story.
Okay. What about you, Breeze?
Definitely on with her with Mike. I thought Mike did a really good job of like explaining a rock bottom. So like he went through that rock bottom and talking about like the worst parts of his his addiction, his alcoholism, and he kind of painted that picture real well, which I think a lot of people need. A lot of people need to see that rock bottom. Somebody spoke about Kratom too and said Kratom. Was that you?
That's me.
Yeah.
I enjoyed that. I actually work at a Kratom lounge.
Okay.
And I see how that helps certain people. That's another thing that helps a lot of people. So that was cool to get that out there, add that into it. Also to celebrate recovery. I didn't know much about that. I know that they also use 12 steps, I think, just like the other ones. So it was cool to see and learn a little bit more about that. I thought that was cool.
Yeah, so Kratom, like I remember talking to Morning Glory, said, how do y'all feel about Kratom?
Well, I'll talk about it because, I mean, that's how I got clean, bottom line. You know, I mean, I'm saying that I surrendered to Jesus and everything, but I've had 4 back surgeries. I have a disease of my back, and I thought that there was no way I could ever function or work or do anything. I mean, I was just living in pain, even on the pain pills. I mean, I was taking those pills because I was always hurting. And the Kratom, I mean, I've been on everything from morphine to methadone to fentanyl to all of it. And I got the most relief. I got the most relief when I took that Kratom that first time. I was like, oh my gosh, like I feel like a normal person. And I've been taking it for, you know, over 3.5 years now. And I'm working and I'm a parent again. And anybody that knows me and has seen what I was like when I was on the meds and on Kratom, they're all for it. I mean, I have friends that are police officers, that are doctors, that, you know, are veterans, and they all see, you know, how much it's helped me. And I've opened a lot of eyes. I'll let people know anytime, any day about it. I know one person in particular, he was a heroin addict, and he was doing really bad, and I got him some Kratom, and he got clean, and now, like, he's gotten other veterans clean, and it's just, you know, it's awesome. It really is. And I don't get high from it. You don't have to worry about stopping your breathing. It's just the best thing for me. It really is.
Yeah.
I'm preface it by saying I think everybody should do your own research. Whatever works for you works for you. I can't tell anybody that this helps that, doesn't help that. it's not a part of my story with recovery. I got clean a different way, and that worked for me. But now I work with it. I work in a lounge, and it is something that we have, and I see it help a lot of people. So, with that being said, anything that I see is beneficial in people's lives, it helps them stay off of other substances, helps them maintain, helps them with pain, like she's talking about, then I'm all for it. I just encourage everybody to do their own research and make sure that that's something that works for them. There's a lot of information on it out there. And there's information on all the there's information on Celebrate Recovery, NA, AA, treatment centers. It's all about looking up the stuff, finding out the information, and figuring out what you think works best for you. I'm definitely not opposed to it. I think it helps a lot of people. So,
because a lot of people, and a lot of I'm not gonna say the name, but they felt like you're just changing one. It's another. It's
very
addiction.
taboo in
Correct.
certain, I guess, programs or in the whole community. And it's a personal thing. It's a moral issue. I mean, you get somebody could drink 40 Monster Energy drinks in a day too, and alter how they. You know what I mean? It's all about what are you doing, how are you doing it, what are your motives, what are your intentions. If I'm doing anything just because I want to change how I feel all day long and I can't get enough of it, then that's probably a problem. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right.
It's about motives, and and it goes back to being a personal choice. Don't let anybody tell you what you're doing for your recovery. I mean, only you know what you feel right or what you feel wrong doing, in my opinion, when it comes to that. I mean, it's a little different than picking up a bag of heroin. You're wrong if you pick up a bag of heroin, but there's certain things that you need to decide for yourself, like, does this work for me, does it not? So.
And I know there's a lot of, legal things coming down. Like, I remember, I think this might have been before we did it. Like, it was a big thing in D.C. where they were gonna. It's always every year or a couple of years. It's like it's about to be illegal.
Well, they tried to ban. They tried to put a ban on us. I think about 2 or 3 years ago, and they had so much backlash show up in D.C. saying no, this helps. That FDA was like, all right, well, hold on, we'll do a little more research. And so now you've got a lot of loopholes where the FDA is trying to regulate, and they're kind of making it hard for certain people, and there are people that want to ban it, but it's one of those processes. We'll see what happens. So hopefully that won't happen.
No, go ahead.
What they're doing now, though, is they're going state by state. They've created a Kratom Consumer Protection Act, and the people that are for Kratom and that are representing it and everything, they're saying that there's a lot of gray areas because there's places that do sell adulterated Kratom, and it'll be laced with something, and that's dangerous. So the main thing that they're trying to get out there, and this act that they're doing, is that people they make sure that people are getting pure, unadulterated Kratom, because it's really just a plant, but there are places, little gas stations and stuff they go and they sell it, like the way Spice used to be. And the FDA doesn't want it around because they'd rather people take all the medication. That it's digging into their pockets.
That's what I was about to say.
It's
when
all
you said
about money.
It's a money grab. It's talking to, not necessarily even talking to y'all, but just when I was doing research on it, it's a lot of people's story. And I would say this would probably be closer to your story than anybody that I talked to, but it's like, okay, you have pain, doctor prescribes something for pain, you get numb or used to that, but and then, all right, well, let me give you something else a little bit higher.
Correct.
And it's this journey where you might start from, I don't know, what do you usually start at? Percocets, Oxy,
Probably
or something?
down.
I started on Tylenol number 3, codeine, and then Vicodin, then
right.
Percocet, and then from that point it was out of control.
And then you get to something, and it's like, then you kind of you almost, like in my mind, it's not like that, but you come to the doctor like, you got anything else? And like, oh, whoa, you
then
have
they treat you,
then you have like a problem.
Correct.
It's like, you motherfucker, you're the one that made me. You gave me the problem, and so
you're taking too much of it, you know, and it's like, well, it stopped working.
and then that leads to other things like heroin or whatever.
Correct.
We're actually seeing a backlash now on those families. They're bringing suits to the families that have had the original companies that brought these huge pain pills out that ran for years that were supposed to not be addictive. Now we're actually seeing them take some action and bring these families into court or whatnot.
Yes.
The Purdue family, I think it is, or something like that.
Yes.
And they're going at them because basically they've known this medicine was going to be addictive. The people that make the stuff know what's going on when it happens, and they pumped it out there. I was in Florida when they had all those walk-in clinics and all the pills. I mean, it was just massive. Doctors prescribe pills, as many as you can get, just pump them out to the people. And I mean, you could see in a period of like 2 or 3 years how it just kind of swept over people. Like the opioid epidemic just ate up Florida, man. I mean, it was bad. And then over into the rest of the country. But I mean, it started with doctors, people going to pain management clinics and getting prescriptions, and boom.
Like I remember somebody was telling me about like women in Vicodin. Was it Vicodin? No, not Vicodin. It's something a little bit less, like lower. But they used to just always just give housewives this kind of
that was Valium.
Valium.
That was totally different.
Yeah.
Valium would be like a benzo, and that's for like anxiety. So it's not quite a pain pill, but that was, they called it mother's little helper or something like that. Or so it was made for, they gave it to housewives. It was like stress in the 50s. There you go.
Right.
And they probably saw like, wow, we're getting some money here, and there's like little light bulbs going off, and that kind of, and that's a whole nother topic, but I still want to touch on it. Like that when you're talking about the people knowing that it's addictive, and I wish I had the name, but I think
Monsanto,
something like that. They're the big drug company that do pesticides and stuff.
Yes.
And then they just purchased Bayer, I believe. So now, so the people it's like the people who are making the diseases are now in charge of giving you the cure and the medicine. You know, I mean, and not to get political, but this administration allows big businesses where there's a moral. I feel like there's a moral thing that should stop that. These two things shouldn't be under the same umbrella. You know, so I don't know. I mean, like I'm all about capitalism, but there's some things
to a certain
where
extent, you should have some kind of moral compass there.
Exactly,
you know,
and
conflict of interest type situation.
Conflict of interest, because obviously there's people who let money, go against their moral compass.
It's true.
You know,
I have something to add. What we were talking about with the doctors knowing that it was addictive. My doctor, I fought with him for 2 years to not take methadone, and he kept trying to push the methadone. I kept trying to push it. Come to find out, he was getting paid every time he put somebody on that script. So he wasn't looking at me as a person anymore. He was looking at me as dollar signs. Didn't care how it would affect me. It was crazy.
And I feel like the doctors, they're such at the top of the food chain. There's no repercussions for them.
Nope.
You know what I mean?
No, they were hitting a lot. There was a period in time. I think they did make like a big sweep where they went in and they got a bunch of these doctors that we're talking about. I mean, these were just basically like shops they set up. I mean, they were prescribing ridiculous amounts. Now, I think that they're still doing that, but you had some guys that, were literally just pumping pills to people, and they did go in and they knocked off some of these people, and I believe that like they probably incarcerated some of those physicians, some of those doctors, but I think overall it still goes on a regular basis. If they can write you a script for something, they're going to write it out real quick.
Yeah, I mean, there's no, and I don't know. I feel like there should be something that protects the people, because I worked in the hospital, and any business, me and Diane worked at Best Buy. There would be like reps that come for a certain product, and they have incentives for you to push a certain product that month.
Right.
And like, hey, you want to buy a TV? Well, I know I'm getting this kickback if I sell you this.
Sony's a good one.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, well, if you're on the fence,
with the Sony.
It's like, oh, so you do have pain.
Right, exactly.
I guess I have pain. Yeah, you have pain. Let me give you this for your pain. And it's like, if you haven't, especially, it's like if you have insurance, it's like a vulture or a vampire. Like, oh, so you're not even paying for it. So I'm definitely gonna. If you got insurance, I'm definitely gonna write you this prescription.
Right.
You're only gonna pay $2 for it right now.
Right.
No, I don't care what it's gonna do to your life later.
Right.
It's like.
It's true.
And they're quick. I go, like, I talk to myself, and I talk to other people. It's almost your not oddity if you're. There's another word I'm looking for, but if you're not on any kind of drug or prescription,
it's a rarity.
You're rarity. Yeah, you're rare.
Truth.
And it's like, it's like, oh, you're just like I'm on a high blood pressure medicine, but I'm overweight. You can see cameras, you can see that, but that's like the only kind of thing that's like, that's all you don't need anything for anxiety
Everybody's on
or
something
anything.
nowadays.
It's true.
I was on 9 different pills when I got clean.
You said you were on
I was on Valium. I was on Prozac. I was on
The stuff
Oxycodone.
that killed Prince, or was it Michael Jackson?
No, that
The
was
cancer medicine.
cancer medicine.
Well,
No, I
Michael
said that I
Jackson
was on
was-
cancer patient dosages.
Oh, dosage, yeah.
Yeah. They had me on dosages that they were giving cancer
It was
patients.
up there.
Oh, that's crazy.
It's crazy.
High dosages.
What did Prince take? Was it Prince or Michael? I think it was Michael.
Michael was propanol. That's the stuff that they give you to go to sleep for surgeries.
Right.
It's like a really strong sedative. So I mean, it's
Right.
basically something that an anesthesiologist would have to sit there with you and monitor you because you'll croak out. you know.
Yep. Prince, I
Wow.
think, was
Fentanyl,
just
wasn't it?
was it fentanyl? I think it was oxycodone.
Was it? Yeah.
Oh, I thought
think
one
I
of
think
so,
it was
but I'm not sure.
oxycodone.
Okay,
Mm.
that's cool. So, is there anything, any like words or anything that you want to say? Any last words or anything that we want to touch on that we haven't touched on yet?
I'd like to say that, if anybody does listen to this or see the documentary, if they have any questions or whatever, I'm open to talking to them, pointing them in a direction or, just something like that.
Okay.
I'm always open to help people.
What about you, Bree?
The same as her, I want the right people to see this and get some hope from it. I also want people to understand that, like, we're dealing with a whole nother demon now. Like, these drugs that are out here, the heroin that's out here now is not the regular heroin that's been around for years. I mean, this
Right.
is, you're getting pure fentanyl, and people are dying left and right, and it's pretty much a
Yes.
game of chance. And rest in peace, that's why I lost my girlfriend. She had been clean for 2 years and picked up one bag. One bag.
Yeah, Tim,
And-
one of his stories, one of his friends was clean, got out of jail. Tim left. He was staying with Tim, and then he just,
And that's it, man. One
and
time's
and
all it
nobody
takes.
nobody think that's gonna be their last bag. They just think it's a bag.
See, Christy didn't even have any heroin in her system, so it was pure fentanyl that was in there when they did the toxicology report. So, I mean, and I'm not saying it's a good thing, but, been clean, you go get high one time, you don't know what you expect, and that can be it. She was 21 years old, and that was it. So, like, be careful. It's not the same. It was never good, but it's definitely not the same as it was. It's a real scary time to be out there, man. So if you can get some help now. Because, I mean, they're
How do
dying
people
left
get
and right.
how do people get fentanyl? Like, how's
That's a
fentanyl
whole nother-
easier?
That's what it
That's
is.
a whole
It's that
nother
there are
podcast.
people that get it prescribed and they can't afford to live, so they sell it, and that's how it gets into people's hands. I used to sell my pills in order to survive. Yep, that's usually the way it goes.
Yeah. So, and I meant to say this earlier, but I kind of say it towards closing, like when we were talking about the audience. And Breeze, just let them know that you're not drinking a normal red solo cup.
Yeah, I already said something. It's just a ginger ale. I promise we're not playing beer pong up here or anything like that. It's just ginger ale. Wrong choice of cup.
But for this and Road to Recovery, I really feel like the main target audience, or who I would like to get this to, is not. I mean, I would love to get it to the people in recovery, and especially if it can help. But where I think it can help is the understanding. Like for me, I want to understand more what
The people who
going
aren't
through.
addicts and might know
but
addicts.
have the
I agree.
family and friends that are. Because like I said, my friend, I hope hopefully you'll see him when I do my Inquisitive Mind of Louis T spotlights. He didn't want to be on that, but he got a book out. So hopefully we'll touch on that. But I known him for 20 plus years, and me as a club promoter originally, I never understood why he didn't come to events and stuff, and I didn't understand that. So I hope this kind of help put some context or let people know what, especially more so the documentary than this, but all it encompassing what people are kind of going through as far as their recovery. Because I don't have an addiction problem, so it's kind of hard for me to put my mind around what people are going through. And Mike's not here, but Mike will say, well, everybody has some kind of addiction problem, but I don't have a substance abuse problem. Other than well, not even with food. I don't think. I think I can. But so I know people, and as it grows, more and more, it affects more and more people's lives. So to let people know what you're going through, not to look at people like, oh, you're an addict, or not to put labels
Be frowned
on people
upon.
like that. Yeah, frown on. Like, if you're an addict, they need help, but you might not be able to help them because they got to be ready for that help.
Yeah,
but when they're ready, be there for them.
Exactly.
Right.
You gotta meet people where they're at.
Yeah,
And a
so-
lot of people don't believe that it's a disease, but it is. I mean, it's nobody aspires to be an addict. You know, there's things that they went through when they were younger, and that's how they, they cope with things. But I used to frown upon addicts. I grew up in Manhattan. I would see people on the train that would be on heroin and dozing out, and I look at them, and now after all that I've been through, I got nothing but love for people like that, because that's not how they want to live their life. Addiction is. It will take you down to prison.
It's true.
So, I don't know if I already said this. Any other last words? I guess that. So, so you said both of y'all were willing to help. So, how can someone find or reach you?
I mean, if somebody reaches out to you and says they would like to talk to me, then I'm happy to have you give them my number.
Okay. Or do you want to do you have any social media or anything that people can?
Well, Facebook, they could send me a message through Facebook. It's Diana Marquez, Marquez.
Okay.
So they can send me a message through Facebook, or I'm not really like hip on Instagram, to be honest with you. I have it, but I'm not as active on it as I should be. So probably through Facebook, or like I said, if they reached out to you, you can give them my number. I don't want to say that right here so that everybody has my number.
Right.
Yeah.
But if you feel
Flash it on the screen at the bottom.
You start be like getting the DM, Snapchat.
But
Oh,
but
man.
if somebody reaches out to you and
Eggplant
says, I'd
emoji.
really like to ask her about something, then okay.
How about you, Breeze? How can
I
people
wouldn't
find
let
you?
me. Nah. Social media is fine, man. It's Breeze Davis on Facebook. It's Breeze Davis on Instagram.
It's
Breeze Davis
Get
on-
Breeze.
Well, it's actually, you can look up Breeze Davis. It's Get Fresh Breeze, but if you look up Breeze Davis, it'll pop up too.
Okay,
on both
you
of 'em.
famous.
But yeah, you get me on any of those. It doesn't matter, man. I'm open to talk about it. If you go to those places, probably not. I mean, I do a lot of music, so it's gonna look like you're on a rapper's page. But if you message me and ask me for anything, I can give you sources, resources, places you can get some help. I'll be more than happy to help anybody. Also, man, WTC, The Harbor. You got NAAA, you've got Celebrate Recovery. I'm pretty sure you can Google all those and find where they have meetings, where there are people at, numbers. You've got Mobile Crisis, I think, that you can call that'll come out and help you get in. NC Harm Reduction, and they'll go out there, they'll help you get in some places. They do needle exchange, they do
I think
condoms.
Steph.
I just wanted to plug a couple places where I know that people could easily find some kind of help in Wilmington. There's a lot of stuff in Wilmington
There is.
helping out for addicts. If you want it, it's out there.
Okay. Man, she's gonna kill me. I wish I knew Steph worked for.
She Coastal Horizons.
Is it Coastal Horizon?
Coastal Horizons.
I
She's
think
it's on
no.
Oleander.
Helping Hands.
Helping Hands.
Helping
She's with
Hands. Helping Hands has like outpatient stuff too. You can go there and get some counseling, some outpatient. So
Yeah, and I definitely want to give a big shout out to Steph, Laurel, Mike, Tim. They're also on that, and I don't know if I'm still on the fence of how and where I'm gonna actually release Road to Recovery, but I do feel like I'm gonna have if you're watching this on YouTube or whatever, the link. It might be private, but you can click the link. Below.
click the link down here.
below,
Somewhere down
below.
here in this vicinity.
Into the script, the link in the script.
Down there where their
definitely
phone
link it.
number is.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna also look for Diane's phone number in the description. So thank y'all for coming out.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
And for me, IMOLT podcast, YouTube. Make sure you hit subscribe. IMOLT podcast on Instagram. Inquisitive Mind of Lewis T on Facebook, and Mind of Lewis T. If you want email inquiries, if you want to be a sponsor, other podcasts, keep this great content coming. Definitely. Your name could be mentioned somewhere in the description, right by Diane's phone number. So I want to thank y'all for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
And like I said, this is going to kind of wrap up what I would like to almost think of the first season of the Inquisitive Mind of Lewis T podcast. Be on the lookout for some great one-on-one interviews. Partner of Breeze Davis,
Dirty White.
Planet Dirty White. Is going to be one of them. Thomas Kane. I got a couple good people lined up. So we can do some more just in-depth one-on-one and just me find out more about people. So
Sweet.
be on the lookout for that. And thank y'all for watching.